We are Justin Gariano and Dusty Schaller. We are Heartbeats, a producer team, and this is Treehouse Recording, our recording studio. One of the most important things of being a musician is being in control of your sound. As a guitar player, you have your guitar that you love, you have your pedal board, you have your amp, you have all of these things, and that's your sound. So when you go to a session, you show up knowing what you're going to sound like. As a string player, if you just show up to a session and it can be mic'd any way you want. As a horn player, it can be mic'd any way you want. You can use any microphone. So the REMIC is something that's just affordable, that you know exactly what you are going to sound like. You can go to a multi-million-dollar studio, or you can go to somebody's bedroom studio, and you know as the player exactly how you're going to sound. It's so transparent of your own playing. You can show up and say, this is me. Same way that a vocalist shows up and is like, this is the vocal mic that I like to use. There's not often studios that just have dedicated orchestral mics of any kind, unless you're going to massive studios. So you're really at the mercy of the engineer constantly. And, as a player, that doesn't always instill confidence of like, yeah, man, I don't know what I'm going to sound like at the end of the day. Like, a REMIC is something that you can get and you can show up and just be consistent. It can be a selling point for you as a musician that I can come here. Producers don't have, if the producer doesn't have a mic, he or she may not want to actually use a live player. They might want to use a string library because they know what it's going to sound like. Well, for very limited money, if the string player already has their own mic, you can hire that person. They can come in and you just get them for one price. This is what we're going to sound like. This is going to sound great. Trust me, I'm in control of my sound. I know what's going on.
There is a trend within at least the recording industry in that this industry's kind of become a bit of a cottage industry again. There are still the major studios, but a lot of people work out of their homes or a small studio. And one of the nice things about the REMIC is you don't have to worry so much about the space that you are in that they work well within myriad different acoustic environments. So the room is not going to be as big of an issue for a player as it would be with using, any other type of microphone, whereby the environment is the crucial factor. In this one, the quality of your instrument and your playing is the factor that is going to get you your sound.
Yeah, you can definitely, for what it would cost to go to a massive studio in LA here for a day, you could just buy your own set of, like, you guys have the quartet mics for the string quartet. Like, if you wanted to record that and go to a studio, that's going to cost you a lot of money, and you're going to have an engineer, and the environment's very important. And I mean, there's no knocking what that sounds like. That's how orchestra has always been recorded. But I think that people are in smaller studios, they don't see a way that they can basically translate that to their studio. For the price of going to this major studio for a day, you can buy a quartet of mics and you can record in your bedroom. You can record in your garage or your kitchen or your small home studio. And then you have the mics, and then you could do it again. And you don't have to keep spending this money. It pays for itself within one session of going to a large studio.
Yeah, and it's great for people like us. We have a studio here in LA. It's good sized. We can fit a fair amount of people in our live room here. But we don't need to worry about, how this is gonna, what is this whole ensemble going to sound like in the room, because we have individual control over each piece, which is great. So we know how it's going to sound every time. Also, what's really nice, and a session that we just did, the composer really liked how he can be able to manually automate and ride each individual instrument to poke it out at the proper time and place in the track. When you are on nothing but room mics, If you want to bring out a violin, you can't do that. That person has to have a mic on them.
Yeah, they have to play louder. You have to get more takes to try to get exactly what you need. You have to be planning so far ahead with it. As well, another thing that we came across, we just did an 8-piece string session in here right before this, and everything was being stacked on top of each other and turning into a full orchestra. And one of the cool things about having the REMICs on each player is that we only had one person playing bass. So all of the low end, if you are miking in traditional settings, all the low end is coming from one part of the room. So you can sort of slide around panning a little bit, but it's not as precise. You start to get weird mixing of things. And this is really, with each take, what the producer is going to go in and do is he's just going to be panning things around exactly where he needs it. And there's so much rejection in these mics that it's just picking up that instrument. He can fly things around wherever he wants. And he's like, oh, I need 4 basses on the left and 4 on the right. Great, do 8 takes with the ensemble. You don't have to do just bass, which is what typically happens. Track 8 of just the bass, and then you can fly them around. Dude, we had the whole ensemble going. Fly everybody around wherever you want. You get even spacing. It sounds massive.